First tonight, new details from a document produced by Chinese military scientists where they discuss weaponizing SARS coronaviruses 5 years before the pandemic hit. The book was written by People's Liberation Army scientists and senior Chinese public health officials back in 2015. It describes SARS coronaviruses as heralding, and I quote, a new era of genetic weapons. It says they can be artificially manipulated into an emerging human disease virus, weaponized and unleashed in a way never seen before. One of the authors of this book is the former Deputy Director of China's Bureau of Epidemic Prevention, Li Feng, and the editor-in-chief of the paper, Zhu Dezhong, was the leader of the SARS Epidemic Analysis Expert Group under the Chinese Ministry of Health. He reported to the top leadership of the Chinese Military Commission and the Health Ministry during the 2003 SARS crisis. He briefed them 24 times. He also prepared 3 reports for the General Office of the Communist Party's Central Committee and the General Office of the State Council. He gave 2 big interviews on Chinese state TV and appeared in 6 news articles. He was responsible for 16 national and military command topics. Now, just to be clear, before I go on and bring you new information from this document, while intelligence agencies suspect, and they've been investigating this since early last year, that COVID-19 may be the result of an accidental leak from a Wuhan lab, there's no suggestion it was an intentional release. The significance of this paper is that it offers a rare insight into how senior scientists at one of the PLA's most prominent military universities, where high levels of defence research are conducted, were thinking about biological research. This Chinese language paper is called The Unnatural Origin of SARS and New Species of Man-Made Viruses as Genetic Weapons. That's its title. And it says, following developments in other scientific fields, there have been major advances in the delivery of biological agents. For example, the newfound ability to freeze-dry microorganisms has made it possible to store biological agents and aerosolize them during attacks. In this document, unbelievably, there's a whole section on the best conditions under which to release a biological attack. It says this: bioweapon attacks are best conducted during dawn, dusk, night, or cloudy weather because intense sunlight can damage the pathogens. It says biological agents should be released during dry weather. Rain or snow can cause the aerosol particles to precipitate. And it says a stable wind direction is desirable so it can float into the target area. The book notes as well how a sudden surge of patients requiring hospitalization during a bioweapon attack, and this is a quote, could cause the enemy's medical system to collapse. It then goes on to talk about the potential need for isolation and quarantine. Here's more from it. Large-scale biological weapon attacks can cause many indirect consequences in addition to human casualties. Major impacts include enormous burden on healthcare system. Well, we've seen that. Biological weapon attacks have a much prolonged effect than conventional attacks like explosion. It may also carry highly contagious diseases that can be transmitted through various means. The document also talks about the psychological terror that bioweapons can cause. It's chilling. It says biological weapons will not only cause widespread morbidity and mass casualties, but also include formidable psychological pressure that could affect combat effectiveness. Just like other disasters, people will live under fear of attack for a considerable period of time, causing brief or lasting psychological impairment among some. In other words, it goes on, attacks using biological weapons can cause acute and chronic psychological and mental illnesses, such as acute stress reactions. Now, among the most bizarre claim in this document is the theory by the authors, and there were 18 authors, most of them linked to this high-risk military university. They claim, and it's a conspiracy theory, that the first SARS from 2003 was a man-made bioweapon deliberately unleashed on China by terrorists. Of course, scientific consensus holds that SARS was of natural origin and that it crossed the xenographic barrier from palm civets to humans likely through the sale of wild animals in wet markets. So this is a very odd conspiracy theory for a senior Chinese military scientist to be pushing about the SARS pandemic of 2003. And it's very similar to China now claiming that the COVID-19 pandemic was brought into Wuhan in frozen food or by the American military. These are conspiracy theories that the World Health Organization irresponsibly gave credence to in its recent whitewash of an investigation. But this isn't just a random conspiracy theory from a senior military scientist. This shows what senior scientists are teaching the next generation of military scientists coming through. As well as reporting to the Chinese Ministry for Health, Zhu Denzhong also held the position of professor and doctoral supervisor at the Air Force Medical University's Military Epidemiology Department. Here, he trained more than 100 PhD and other students, putting this idea into young scientists' minds that SARS from 2003 was a bioweapon inflicted on them by foreign terrorists. One of his students actually went on to write a thesis about this very topic of SARS being of unnatural origin. And that thesis was uncovered, I found out today, by a group of internet researchers, investigators who go by the name of Drastic. I mean, this is a war mentality, teaching Chinese students the best conditions under which to release a bioweapon. This is very dangerous stuff. Yet this editor-in-chief of this paper was successively rated as an outstanding teacher in the army. He was given the gold medal of the Military Academy Education Award. He was recognized as an advanced individual in the national SARS prevention and control work, ranked as an outstanding party member of the General Staff, and he still enjoys special government allowances. New Zealand data scientist Gilles Demeneuf, he's one of the people at Drastic who've been researching this individual. He told me today, you would think that Zhu Dezhong may be some fringe scientist based on his conspiracy theories about SARS-1. Well, he is not. Instead, he is a renowned epidemiology professor at the 4th Military Medical University. He's considered an outstanding party member within the PLA, top levels, and enjoys a special government allowance, just like an academician. His training was really good for sure. This is what Gilles says. In 1981, he went to do some postdoc study in the US at the very top Baylor College of Medicine and in the US CDC. These days, he's busy teaching his very special theories to doctoral and postdoc students, at least 53 and up to 100 so far, who form the latest generation of PLA scientists. It's just extraordinary that this is what they're being taught at university, how to unleash a bioweapon attack, as recently as 2015. This 263-page paper was published by the Chinese Military Medical Science Press. That's a Chinese government-owned publishing house managed by the General Logistics Department of the PLA. I've confirmed, while investigating this story, that senior State Department sources obtained this paper and analysed it during their investigation into the origins of the coronavirus back in May 2020. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and his chief China advisor Miles Yu then made a passing reference to it in that brilliant Wall Street Journal op-ed that they wrote back in February. They said a 2015 PLA study treated the 2003 SARS coronavirus outbreak as a contemporary genetic weapon launched by foreign forces. I tracked the paper after this. It circulated among Chinese dissident communities online. It came across the desk of Luc de Pulford. He's the coordinator at the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, the global group set up last year to raise awareness about China's human rights abuses. He said to me that if this document is representative of the scientific thinking of those who advise the top leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, then there are very serious questions which need urgent answers. The revelation about this document and much, much more on China's bioweapons research program features in a book I've written. It's called What Really Happened in Wuhan. It will be published by HarperCollins in September this year, It's available for pre-order from Booktopia now. If you want to buy it, which I suggest you do, of course, the link is at the top of my Twitter page. And if you're not on Twitter, which would be a wise decision, then just Google what really happened in Wuhan and Booktopia.